Hey everyone, welcome back to Screen Review. Again, my name is Megan.
And I'm Hannah. Hello.
Right. Before we get started, make sure to follow us on all social media platforms. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, really wherever at Boca Tribunes. Make sure to give us a follow, share our page, share this video, and you can watch it again later on Facebook, IGTV, or YouTube. So today we're actually going to be reviewing a 2004 movie, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. You can find it on Netflix. It is 1 hour, 48 minutes long, and it is rated R. So as always, we're going to go ahead and get started, just giving our kind of general thoughts of the movie, spoiler-free. So Hannah, spoiler-free, what'd you think?
Well, compared to the last two movies we had to watch, this was a million times better. I'm going to say that just right off the bat. I feel like we had a rough experience getting through the last two, and so this one was...
I like Spotlight.
Oh, sorry. Spotlight was good. It was just a little slow. However, this one kept me engaged pretty much throughout the entire movie. I didn't really feel like it was dragging. It also helped that it was only an hour and 48 minutes. Whereas, and I also think that's because it was made in 2004.
Yeah, I agree to that.
Whereas a lot of movies now, they all have to meet that 2 hour and 30-minute threshold, it seems. And it's half the time, it's just not necessary.
Yeah, that's definitely kind of a reoccurring thing that I have said on this segment before, is to where any movie that's over 2 hours long, I'm already kind of upset going into it. So perhaps I'm harsher on those movies than necessary, but a lot of the times 30 to 40 minutes of like fluff really can be cut out super easily. And this movie didn't have it. I was engaged the whole time, just like you were saying.
Exactly. And then I also mentioned Charlie Kaufman. He was one of the writers on this film. And I guess compared to other movies he's written, like the other one we watched was I'm Thinking of Ending Things. He writes about things. I really like the way that he writes and the way people talk to each other, the things they talk about, and then how he makes the scenes beautiful but painful at the same time. Because I think that was reoccurring in this movie and that movie as well. I'm not sure what other movies he's watched or that he's written, but I think we should maybe look at some of those, because I really think that that's something special that a lot of people can't get substance right, but I think he can.
Okay, well, that's quite glowing praise. Yeah, we'll definitely look into any of those types of his movies or anything. I mean, he's really talented. There's other things. I mean, you and I both enjoyed I'm Thinking of Ending Things. This is kind of one of his all-time best movies, according to many critics. There's another one, I believe, that came out. I think it's called like Being John Malkovich or something, that we'll have to look into. It kind of mirrors this type of movie. But regardless, I will say that one of the reasons that this movie kind of kept me engaged the whole time was how they jumped around in time. A lot of the times when movies kind of stay in one place and they're stagnant and you just progress with the characters, it can get a little bit boring. But this movie does not do that, and I really, really like that. And it seems like that might be kind of Charlie Kaufman's style in that sense, to where a lot of his movies aren't like super simple, chronological, like point A to point B to point C, the movie's over. Like, it's very interesting, and it keeps you kind of on your toes the whole time. Like how you're mentioning.
I was just gonna say, I really like that as well, especially because if you think about time and how it probably isn't linear, but we're kind of forced into the mold that everything is to progress one day to the next constantly without thinking of anything in the past because you're only on a step forward. Kaufman really doesn't, I don't think he's considering life like in that way. He thinks that we're constantly thinking back to our past and things that went wrong, things that humiliate us, things that we love and miss. So it's like always that call back to things, or to fast forward to the future, but like the present, and then experience that moment as well. I think that's what he's trying to get at. We're experiencing life through our emotions versus through the myth that is time. You know what I mean?
Okay. Or we're not going to break down time this episode. But kind of how you were mentioning earlier when we were backstage, that every character, I mean, Kaufman does a really nice job of making every character layered and multidimensional. Like every character has a purpose. They're not just there to kind of fill in an extra space. Like every character has a unique relationship with one another, and they all benefit the storyline. Like there's never a character where I was kind of like, oh, weird, like why are they in the movie? Which I find that I'm walking away from movies with that kind of sentiment a lot of the time. But this movie, I really liked it. I mean, the cast was relatively small. Like there weren't many characters, but I appreciated that happened.
I appreciate that as well. I didn't even really think about the amount of actors. My first thought was it's a star-studded cast. Why did they do that? Whenever I see that, I think maybe the movie's not going to be good. But this, I didn't feel that at all. I think that they picked the characters, and I mean, the cast was chosen really well. I can think that every person that was in their role, I agree. I wouldn't have switched anyone around. But I don't know. Maybe we should start getting into so we can talk about each character individually. And
yeah, we definitely can.
Okay.
So now just kind of a disclaimer, we are going to start discussing spoilers. So if you have not seen the movie yet, make sure to go over to Netflix, watch it really quickly, and you can find our show again, Screen Review, on YouTube, Facebook, IGTV, really wherever you can find us. So go for it, Hannah. Spoilers. Let's talk about characters.
All right. Well, I guess we have to start with Joel. No matter how much I want to roast Patrick.
All right, we'll start with Joel, but then we'll make our way down.
Yeah. So Joel is Jim Carrey in this movie. He is the protagonist, and let's just set the stage. You open the movie, you open it.
Perfect, I'm there.
And you're greeted with Joel's sleeping body, and he wakes up.
Great.
And the curtains are drawn, it's dark, he's sleepy, he's wearing a blue pajama suit. So you can tell he kind of just wants to go back to bed. But he wakes up, he looks around, he heads to work. It's Valentine's Day, just a regular day for Joel. And
I will mention right now, he notices that his car had been hit. It looked like another car kind of scraped into the front of his. And so he's like, oh man, like if Valentine's Day weren't already super hard for me, a lonely man, now it's extra hard because my car is wrecked. And so then he has to work.
We'll talk about the car wreck, whatever, when you talk about the hair colors. Yes. So, because that did happen, and he did notice it at that point, that his car had a little bit of yellow and the scratch. His like a gray car. And he's at the train station doing his regular route to work. He's waiting for the train, and then he's like, I'm not impulsive. And he started running. And he runs to another train, jumps on it, heads to Montauk. That's where we meet Clementine, who's Kate Winslet, right?
Yes, Kate Winslet.
Okay. And then I guess if you want to talk about Kate Winslet, and we can start talking about other things besides just main plot, we can. But I do want to mention that on the Valentine's Day subject, Joel describes Valentine's Day as a holiday created by greeting card companies to make people feel miserable for being alone. Yeah, which we'll get into when we talk about Clementine.
Yeah, that kind of puts you into where his mind is at on this Valentine's Day. I mean, that's kind of a popular thing among those who celebrate the holiday alone. You'll often hear them say like, oh, it's a fake holiday anyways. Like, who cares? Like, I'm fine. So you can kind of see this rationalization going on. And so as he's walking along the beach, he's reminiscing about one of his previous girlfriends, Naomi. And he's talking about how like, oh, you know, I'm alone. Like, I really want to find someone again. Like, oh, maybe I'll call Naomi. Like, she was nice, I guess. And you can kind of tell that he wasn't really in love with her. Like, he had to kind of convince himself to even want to maybe talk to her again. And that is where we find Clementine, as you said, walking along the beach. And it's kind of one of those scenarios where you can be like, oh, it's fate, it's destiny, because he doesn't talk to her on the beach. You know, he sees her when they're waiting at the train station again to go back to wherever. And he doesn't talk to her then again. But she's doing some weird, like, peek around the corner type thing to try to get him to say hi. And then they're on the train together. So there's kind of like 3 instances where he's had a chance to talk to her, and he's failed to deliver on all 3 occasions. She's actually the one that breaks the ice. So I guess it's kind of important to know about each of their kind of characters initially when we're meeting them. Joel is very introverted, like he's journaling. He mentions that it's the first time he's journaled in like over 2 years. And his first journal entry is complaining about Valentine's Day. So he's lonely. Whereas you see Kate Winslet's character, Clementine, she comes in like bright blue, not bright blue hair, but still blue hair. It's definitely a statement. And it's the first thing she mentions. She says, hey, I'm Clementine. I have blue hair. So I guess if you want to start talking about the hair colors, we can. But is there anything else you'd like to note first, Hannah?
I guess just his first journal entry was Valentine's Day, and then he met her on Valentine's Day, I guess, right?
Mm.
Previous year. And that's why all of the pages were ripped from his notebook, because he had to give them up so he would forget the memories of Clementine. And that's why he's like, oh, I don't remember doing this. At one point in the film, when he looks at his journal, like the pages ripped out.
Yeah.
And so he goes back on his regular routine because he's forgotten all the things that Clementine has taught him.
Yeah. So it's definitely interesting that Kaufman chooses to kind of throw us into basically the ending of the story. You know, we start out, the very beginning is the end. They're pretty much mirrored, I would say, which I love, because if you're going in as an unsuspecting viewer, you don't think of it. But I will say that obviously Joel meets Clementine really the second time when she has blue hair. And a lot of people have found symbolism within Kate Winslet's hair, Clementine's hair, throughout the entire movie. It's where they meet again at the very end. She has blue hair, and she makes sure to let you know that the names of the hair dye that she uses. So Blue Ruin, Green Revolution, Red Menace, and then her own fun name, Agent Orange. So you can kind of mirror these to the seasons, is what a lot of people have done. Can't speak today. I'm having a hard time. But
you're good.
Regardless, a long time ago, before they had their memories wiped, when they first met, actually, Clementine had green hair, and a lot of people have found symbolism in that, you know, kind of representing spring, or their love first blossoming, kind of new beginnings, new possibilities, everything kind of positive you associate with the season of spring. But then you get into summer, and obviously her hair is red during the summer of their relationship, kind of like, you know, a passionate, fiery red color. It's when their relationship is really kind of kicking off, and, you know, almost you could argue at its best point is when, you know, she has this red hair. But then the relationship kind of dies down a little, and you can see this through the fading of her red hair to kind of this like muted highlight orange, if that makes sense, to kind of have muted and highlight together. And this is when their relationship really starts to kind of go south. So all of their kind of worst memories of each other is when Clementine has this orange hair. Because at this point, the relationship is kind of fading away from summer, away from that, you know, new, fresh, exciting relationship. And now they're kind of settling into a routine with one another and almost starting to turn on one another because of it. There's a lot of bickering, a lot of like awkward silences and like silent dinners and just chewing noises, like a lot of that kind of thing. So, you know, I don't like chewing noises. So you kind of see this happening during the autumn of their relationship. But then this is when she gets her memory kind of erased, is during this blue color phase. And this is seen as the winter of their relationship. So you can see, you know, their love is dead, to kind of put it bluntly. Their love is dead. The relationship is over. There's no hope for them moving forward, as winter kind of marks this season of depression for a lot of people. But towards the end of the movie, when he meets Clementine again for the second time after having their memory wiped, her roots are growing in a little bit. So you can kind of see her natural color coming in. And then when you get your hair dyed blue, it fades to a green, actually. So there's a little bit of green at the top, and then it's mostly blue at the bottom. So a lot of people have seen this as meaning, you know, the relationship resets. They're getting back to the spring. Like the cycle might inevitably repeat, but they're getting right back up to the start of it as they're starting their relationship again, as winter inevitably gives way to spring.
I think that's a great analysis of her hair color. And I especially want to note that she's the only color in the movie.
Yeah.
Everything else is muted. Everything else is gray. No one has a pop of color on them at all. Everyone's wearing any shade of brown, black, or white. Nothing has color at all except for Clementine. And even on the, like how we talked about the scratch on his car, that still brought color to his life. That yellow scratch from the fire hydrant still was a mark Clementine left on him. He just couldn't remember at that moment because he had just had his memory wiped. But I thought that was interesting that she was constantly portrayed as someone that resisted the life that Joel was going to let himself live. You know what I mean? He was fine with his boring life. He would never describe it to her because he knew that it was nothing compared to the life that she lived, because she lived limitlessly. Whereas he would constantly surround himself with things that didn't allow him to live. And the same thing with getting the procedure done. She even said, she's like, you know, I did it because I'm impulsive, not because she is against rigidity. You know what I mean? Whereas he, of course he did it because he wants to go back into the mold he put himself in, because he feels safe in his little bubble. But she helps him pop it, and they help each other move forward.
Definitely. I mean, it was definitely almost like a vindictive move on his part to be like, oh, she got the procedure. She doesn't remember me. I have to get it too. I'm going to get it. He's basically kind of taking it away from her. He's like, oh, if she cannot remember me, I don't want to remember her. because I guess in a sense it made it too hard and painful for him, and it's just easier for him to live without her, and like you're saying, just settle back into his boring life now that all the color has left his life.
Exactly.
Kind of permanently.
Unless now we're talking about the procedure and who has the ability to get it done and why they did it. Let's talk about Mary and
let's talk.
Howard.
You go for it.
Well, I want to first start off by, so Mary is Kirsten Dunst in this movie, and the entire time they kind of do her a little dirty. I feel like they didn't give her a lot of makeup. She's one of those people who has muted colors on. Her hair always kind of looks disheveled and not clean, and she just looks tired and stressed, and she works hard. Every scene she's in at the very beginning when you meet her for the first time, she's working and hard. The lobby is constantly full. The phones are constantly ringing. The appointments are booked, and she's the only secretary. Yeah. So she's overworked, but she loves her job, and she just, you can tell she has a passion for it. And Dr. Howard exploited that. I forget his last name, but I just know he's Howie. That's gross.
Like something with a W, I want to say.
Yeah. They address him as Howard, so I'm just gonna do that.
Oh, it's like Mearswack.
Oh, okay.
Like Mearswack. Just say Howard.
Yeah, I'm gonna say Howard. Because of their adulterous relationship, he kind of puts her in a corner and makes her do the procedure, even when she professes that she doesn't want it. In the tapes that Mary eventually listens to, she hears herself pretty early on in the little tape recorder say, "I don't think I can do this. I don't want to do this." And he's like, "Oh, well, we already agreed you're going to." So of course she does. Of course she follows through. And so we can talk about the power of persuasion and the power to go back to that normal before life was hard, and how like Howard really was trying to get her to make his life easier, and that the solution was her doing this procedure. If she could forget her feelings for me, that makes my life a lot better. So we're gonna do this to you, and then you're not gonna remember, and no one's gonna tell you. Even to the point when Stan was confronted by her, and she's like, "Tell me you knew," and he's like, "No." He knew.
I don't think he knew.
He knew because when Hollis came, she was like, "Really, Stan? Like, you didn't say anything?" Like, she, you know what I mean? She still doesn't know, the poor girl.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was thinking she said, "Really, Stan," to the point because he like honked the horn to get them to stop.
Yes, but then also the addition of what Hollis said, saying she still doesn't know, question mark.
She said that to Howard, not to Stan.
Oh, but okay. But still, like,
I'm a stickler for details. What I will mention, though, is that I think that this kind of little side plot, which was also really interesting, is it also displays the same meaning of, like, all roads can kind of lead to the same point anyways. You know, they already had this adulterous relationship. She had her memory wiped. The whole process repeated again. She ended up still coming on to Howard and being like, "I like you. Like, I've liked you since I've, been working here. Like, I'm sorry, like, I know it's stupid, like, everything like that." Like, they're still kind of going in the same direction, and he's still letting it happen. Mr. Howard can sit up on his chair and be like, "Oh, she just came on to me." You kissed her back. I don't think so. You know what I mean? And this can also be seen in Joel and Clementine's relationship. They basically went through the same thing. They had a whole relationship. They forgot each other. It was a mutual forgetting thing, but then they still ended up together in the end. So it's almost like forgetting, what's the point of forgetting in this kind of sense? All these roads, all these paths, although they're more complicated, they're all kind of leading to the same conclusion.
I would say yes, that at one point they led to the same conclusion, but they had different outcomes. Because in the beginning, with Joel and Clementine's relationship, their relationship ended because they both went under the procedure to forget the other. Whereas Mary and Howard's relationship ended because she also underwent the procedure. But then when they found out about the procedure, instead of going through the same exact cycle again, Mary quits. She leaves. She like takes herself out of that equation. And then with Joel and Clementine, when they're confronted with leaving, they end up staying, but it's by their own choice because they mutually agree to work together, just in spite of what's on the tapes. That was all the negativity in their relationship. So it's almost like when faced with the bad, they look it in the face, and they're like, we're gonna do this because it's the right thing to do versus the easy thing to do.
I think that more so plays into kind of character arcs and the transformation of each person throughout the course of this movie. Because initially, when all these things happened, their kind of initial thought, except I guess maybe for Mary, and I guess you could argue Joel, is to forget. Like Howard wanted Mary to forget, and Clementine wanted to forget Joel. And I guess you could say, I don't know if you should, but Mary and Joel were kind of victims in this sense. Mary definitely was. Joel can make his own decisions. Like no one forced him to do it. Although he did initially, immediately regret it upon doing it. You could say he was persuaded by Clementine to do it because I guess go get her. You get that procedure too. Let her know. She doesn't remember you though.
He just wanted to have his life be easy, and that was
I know. And that's kind of an important part of this movie. It's life can be easy and be fine, or it can be hard and also amazing. You just have to make these hard choices and these decisions. You best believe Mary's going to get her life completely turned around after leaving awful Dr. Howard. And Clementine and Joel, I'm sure they'll be happy. I'm a bit of a pessimist. I think it'll end again. You seem to disagree. Do you want to kind of unpack that for us?
Why I think the relationship will not end?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not sure it could, but I think from the ground that they were setting, and they were acknowledging each other and their faults, I don't see why it wouldn't work, because they were so dead set on being back together and that they both regretted it so much that, I don't know. I mean, in 50 years, maybe they don't want to be together anymore. Sorry, my light flickered. But as of now and how it stands, I would say that they're going to stay together. My light might just be dead. So let me turn.
That's fine. Don't worry about it. You don't look that bad. It's not that bad of a lighting change. Don't worry about it.
But yeah, so I don't think that their relationship will end, especially because they already heard all of the bad things, the other things of them.
Yeah.
And all of the hard things they will go through, they've already went through, and they decided that's fine because they had to walk through Joel's memories to get out. So I don't know. I know that was his brain's representation of her. However, I don't know.
It could still be important. I think that during that entire time, he really got to know another side of her, although it was kind of his imagination's version of her. They were still able to work together and have more of an open relationship, I guess, in a sense, where communication was easy, it was flowing, they were able to work together toward a common goal. Although, sure, it was in his mind, it was an imagination. I would say it was a very accurate representation of Clementine. I mean, even in the end, his imagination's version of Clementine said, "Meet me in Montauk," and that's the last thing she said. And then he randomly, Valentine's Day, wakes up and is like, you know what? I'm going to go to Montauk today. And he finds her again. So obviously, he knows her pretty well. He knows her very well to know that she would do that, even when they both didn't really remember each other at this point.
And that's very true. So do you want to talk about the quotes, or do you want to talk about Patrick?
All right, you can just roast Patrick real quick, then we'll get to the quotes.
Okay. So Patrick is Stan's little assistant who helped him run the machine that erases Joel's memories. And he's also the creep who, when erasing Clementine's memories, he falls in love with her, which Stan even says is highly unethical. The fact that he was even there thinking of her in a way that a doctor shouldn't view a patient type situation, where she's undergoing a procedure and you wouldn't want someone you hired to then fall in love with you, steal your underwear, steal everything that your ex-boyfriend had of you, and then give it back to you as a gift and try and get you to love him. That's a lot.
That is a lot. Mm-hmm. But I will say that.
Weasel.
Okay. I will just say, though, that, I mean, yes, he's disgusting. Yes, I don't like him as a character. But it's important to mention that everything that Patrick did kind of drove Clementine right back to Joel. I think, although her memory of Joel was erased, obviously if someone's feeding you the same exact gifts, the same exact lines you've heard before, you're going to be somewhat familiar. Like, as soon as they were laying down on the frozen lake together, similarly to how Joel and Clementine did at the beginning of the movie, and Patrick, gross Patrick, deliver the same line saying like, "Oh, like I'm so happy, like if I could die, I'm so happy," something like that. The line is essentially saying, "I could die, like I'm so happy," and Cleo immediately shoots up and just runs. She just says, "You know what? No, I'm fine," because I'm sure she could tell that like she's done this before. Like this thing has happened before. It's kind of like waking her up in a sense to where now she feels the need. I'm gonna go to Montauk. I'm gonna go to Montauk, and then that's where she runs into Joel. I'm not sure if I got the chronological kind of sequence of events right there, but to that effect, I think it makes sense.
But in light of this movie, time doesn't have to be 100% linear, so it's okay. We can jump around and we still get to the same result, which is like what you were saying, basically.
Perfect. We all made that was on purpose. We made it full circle. I guess we can kind of quickly wrap up with these quotes. So,
you want me to read the quotes and we can talk about each one?
Yeah.
The first one that is mentioned is the one by Nietzsche, right? This is the first one that's mentioned. It's by Mary mentions both of these quotes. And the first one is, "Blessed are the forgetful, for they get the better even of their blunders." And so in this movie, in the context, she would always say this every time a procedure was either just finished or undergoing, because every procedure obviously entails getting your mind wiped. So you forget, and then she sees it as a blessing. Being able to forget the things that are harmful to you makes your future life better, more productive, easier, more manageable. Whereas living with all of the negativity in your past would therefore make your future life more difficult and just overall harder. And so it makes their life easier. In this quote specifically, it's calling back to, and basically, if you can think of your past but you can't remember it, then you think your life was easy and you're happier. But if you think of the negative of that, when Joel remembers all the things in his past, that's what led him to do this procedure. So you have to take it with a grain of salt, I think, life. It can't be good. It can't be all good, because then it was, did you really live? You have to, like, the richness from life comes from the hard times.
Yeah, I would agree with that. You kind of, yeah, I think you said it all, to be honest. I really can't add anything super beneficial to the conversation. You kind of, yeah, I agree with that. Okay, so the next one is by Alexander Pope, and this one says, "How happy is the blameless vestal's lot, the world forgetting by the world forgot. Eternal sunshine of the spotless mind, each prayer accepted and each wish resigned." That's the quote. So I guess, I mean, Hannah, you provided just a wonderful historical context to this one. If you want to kind of break down the historical context, and then I can kind of interject my own opinion after you're finished.
So this is like a rough paraphrase of the historical context of this quote. Alexander Pope wrote this line describing nuns in the church. And so the first part says, "How happy is the blameless vessel's lot," and that refers to the nuns in the nunnery, where they isolate themselves from the world and they all join and congregate together. And then the next part, "The world forgetting by world forgot." By living in this nunnery all together, not only are they isolating themselves from the outside is also isolated from them. And so because they don't interact, they both merge farther and farther away from each other. And so they're no longer spheres of influence with one another the way they typically were. They now don't influence each other, so they don't remember each other. So the world forgetting by the world forgot, they've forgotten one another. So the nuns in the world are not connected. And then the next part says, "Eternal sunshine of the spotless mind." Because they can't remember, the nuns can't remember of the hard times of the world because they're no longer connected to it. They live in eternal sunshine because they're in eternal ignorance. Because they've set themselves off in the church alone from the outside, they'll never experience the rough times in life. So there's no proof that they exist because they're not in relationship with them. And then in the movie, before I get to the last part, in the movie, the spots on Joel's brain were hard times he had. And those are the parts that Stan was deleting. And so that's why I think that this quote is so important, not only in context when Mary is explaining it, but also it's the title of the movie. So
yeah, and real obvious with that one.
Yeah. And then it says, each prayer accepted, each wish resigned. People can wish for a better life, but they'll resign that and pray instead, because if you pray to something, you're not actually trying to change the real material situation around you. You're wishing for an eternal, better life elsewhere, devoid of the world's harshness. And so in the same way that Joel was deleting all of the real world hardness in his life to go for an eternal sunshine life where everything is easy because he's never experienced anything rough. So that's what that quote was. Mary mentioned it when I think she read it directly to Robert. Not Robert? Howard.
Yeah,
right?
She did. Yeah. Both of these quotes she delivered. Well, the Nietzsche quote she kind of said upon her entrance with Stan and Patrick doing the procedure, but she said it more specifically directly to Howard, kind of talking about it with him. I mean, I think that everything you said really encapsulates the meaning of what Pope was trying to get at, especially because you have the historical context behind it, so I can't exactly refute that in that sense. But I think that your entire kind of description of the nunnery and the world kind of outside of the church kind of being in this disconnect with one another, I mean, just change out 1 and 1 for Joel and Clementine, and the quote literally applies, because they had
exactly.
they weren't, it's just think of it like that. If we explain the whole thing just with Joel and Clementine's names instead, that's exactly the point of the quote, I think, because they were able to find eternal sunshine in their spotless minds, because now, they found new love again. But like Hannah was saying earlier, the only difference is now they're kind of more aware of things that might cause their relationship to hit hardship down the line. But now that they're aware of it, they're more easily able to live in this eternal sunshine, because they're not thinking like, oh, what if the relationship goes poorly? Like, what if I don't like something about this person? Like, you kind of already know exactly what's going to happen. You already know what you're going to hate about them. You already know the relationship might hit some rough patches, but they're both accepting it and ending with eternal sunshine. And of course, the movie in the end fades to white. Eternal sunshine. Like, we just got to go right there. But when Joel finds out that Clementine had the procedure, his whole world fades to black. So we love character development for lovely Joel. He deserves it. That's pretty much all that I have. Do you have anything else, Hannah?
I guess I want to we can end really quickly. I just want to slightly almost counter what you said, because I think the point of this is to not live in eternal sunshine, is to recognize the bad times are going to come, and when they come, to not pretend they're not happening, but to sit there and deal with it rather than running away the way that they did. To live with the spots on your mind.
Mm-hmm. I think that you misunderstood me, or maybe I just communicated it poorly. That's what I was trying to say. Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. That like they know this about each other now, so now they're able to have kind of this idea of eternal sunshine of the spotless mind, although they know exactly what they're getting into. They're still able to find this eternal sunshine with knowing. Again,
but I'm saying the goal is not eternal sunshine.
Hannah, eternal sunshine can literally just mean happiness. Can't they be happy? Do they have to be miserable together? Like,
I don't know, because the Clementine would always say she doesn't want nice. She wants like real, essentially.
Yeah, but I said happy.
Nice. Happy can be a synonym of nice.
I disagree.
Okay. Well, that's something we talk about on a different show. We can end with a quote from Teddy Roosevelt that I looked up really quick.
Sure.
Because I think that's something that's relevant to this movie specifically. The quote, it's a paraphrase. Nothing in the world worth doing is easy. Living life is not worth it if it's easy. And that's why I don't think the goal is eternal sunshine. The goal is hard.
I mean, I understand and I appreciate your ideas and sentiments, but I would say that, I mean, you can take life and look at the hardships and be like, my life is hard. Yeah, but you can also still be happy despite all of that. I don't see kind of it being a one or the other. Either you have hardships or you're happy. I can see them being in combination with one another. And I think that's the end of the movie. That they see these hardships, they accept them for what they are, and they're still able to find happiness despite that. I mean, they're literally frolicking in the snow at the end of the movie. I don't think they're exactly upset.
No, they're real happy.
They're real happy at the end. Regardless, those are my 2 cents. So anything else, Hannah? Anything else you want to bicker about lightly?
No, we can have people in the comments just explain what they think the movie is about and whether it's Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind or if Eternal Sunshine isn't the goal.
Okay. It's all right. So does Hannah didn't even listen to the last 4 minutes of what I was saying. Regardless, thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back here next Tuesday, 7 p.m. We're going to be watching Black Mirror, the national anthem, which is available on Netflix. It is an episode of a TV show, but it is about like a movie, like a kind of a movie length TV show. But before we go, make sure to follow us on all our social media sites where we can be found at Boca Tribune, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, wherever. Watch the show later. Watch the movie. Let us know what you think. Thanks, guys. Go ahead.
Just for the next one we're going to do, then I think it's called National Election. I just want to say there's a content warning. So if you, I don't, you know, because it's pretty graphic. So
it is very graphic. National anthem.
Oh, okay. National anthem. Thank you.
Yes. So definitely, this one is intense. This one's intense. So if you're kind of not into that, I would skip it. Just join us the week after.
Yep. That's all.
Thank you. See you guys next week.
See ya.